Hello, and welcome to Twin Killing, the show where the hosts may have matching chromosomes, but they don't necessarily have matching opinions. Hello, my name is Jason Luna. Normally, here's where we have some segue to Marcus Luna introducing himself, but it's just Jason Luna today. Marcus Luna is out on assignment, uh, presumably to a local 7-Eleven. Yep, I'm calling it. But yeah, so gotta get a Slurpee and a very healthy slice of pepperoni pizza. Enough with that aside. We got a very exciting show for you tonight. The show's called Twin Killing, so I'd like to say that somehow I've addressed the lack of the regular host. In future times, when this podcast is a little bigger, a little more organized, we're gonna have fill-in hosts, I imagine. I actually have people in mind. Awkward if they heard this now and are like, yeah, I don't want to do a podcast with you, but a few comedians I know in the Los Angeles area, Chinagona, who produces the Soy Saucy Show, very funny, Nicole Blessing, veteran of the LA comedy and acting spheres, Fred W. Mustard, fellow hosted MC. He does some producing shows. I do Flappers Comedy Club, who's not affiliated with this podcast yet, but soon. You know, you want it, Flappers. You want in on this. I don't know why I'm vamping. I guess because I don't know how it feels awkward not to have Marcus here for a show called Twin Killing. The whole idea is that you have two twins hosting. We will keep the other sort of implied or perhaps subtly stated use of the word twin in the podcast name, and that is two topics that offer a bit of a diversity for the conversation. And if you were listening last week's episode, God bless you, first of all. And keep doing that. But also, last time on the show, okay, so we're talking about Nintendo Switch stuff, and this show is at a very precarious time to be as less relevant towards Nintendo Switch talk as possible. And Nintendo Switch talk is already pretty not relevant in the world game. But anyway, last week's show we taped the day before the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct that happened last week. And we covered the Nintendo Switch Direct that had happened the week before. So now, for this week's episode, I'm going to give you my opinion / rundown / reading a online column of listed games I found off the internet. I'm gonna do my breakdown of the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct that happened last Tuesday, I believe. This is taped same day release of Friday, April 11th. This was whatever that was. I'm not doing the math. Not the Tuesday this week. The one before that. Let's keep talking about Tuesdays. How they work. So let's break that down. Some interesting changes in the internet zeitgeist approach towards the Nintendo Switch 2 that we'll get into. And then, to have something else to talk about, I've got to have some use for it. I have watched the entirety of the Twilight Zone. I know what you're thinking. That whimsical UPN show in the early 2000s, hosted by Forrest Whitaker? No. I'm talking about the second one, not the third one, the second Twilight Zone from the 80s. I watched that. Most people don't know anything about it. And people who know about it probably don't like it. And I'll get into that in the second half of the show. But first, let's talk about this Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. So, I do think it's fascinating going into the Direct how things change, right? Because going into the what I'll always call the Nintendo 1 Switch Direct, the last one ever likely, although who knows, they're going to switch 1 support for a long time, coinciding with Nintendo Switch 2. But anyway, after that Direct, that had some decent games on it, but it was definitely sort of like, there was this underlying sense that like, the big things on the horizon, the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct is literally happening in like 5 days after that Direct, whatever it was. It's this big expectation, like this is going to be awesome. The Nintendo Switch 2. So very positive. To a very like shrill almost religious extent, because the whole appeal of the Nintendo Switch 2 at that time was we have this next generation console that's coming, and we don't know what's in the direct, and that's what makes it amazing. So people are speculating, oh, we've got to get Mario, 3D Mario. We're gonna get these new games that we don't know what they are, and that's the joy of the unknown. It's Christmas presents in April, but were they to be April Fool's presents? Let's discuss. So yes, on that Tuesday last, I feel uncomfortable every time I bring up Tuesdays now because I'm gonna explain. I feel like I have to re-explain how calendars work, and I don't. I don't have to do that. This is great. Don't even mark us at all. Okay, so the direct rolls around, and I think. Well, okay, I watched it before I read any criticism about how the direct went. Going in, we're excited, new games. I watched it, and I was excited, new games, more or less. Let's get into specifics, please. So, for you Nintendo Switch 2 fans, you're well aware that beginning of the year, in the trailer for hey, there's this Nintendo Switch 2, which was like a black boxy Nintendo Switch but bigger with slicker controls and stuff. The game playing on it was a Mario Kart game. So my degrees of Mario Kart. First thing was, I was like, oh, they're making a new Mario Kart game. And if I sound nonplussed, that's kind of like my baseline, which to most people would be like, yay, I'm going to play this game every day. It's going to be awesome. Because that's pretty much what it's going to be. I'm going to play Mario Kart. Like with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I've put in hundreds of hours into that game on the Nintendo Switch. And I enjoyed it. And this looked like more of the same. It was an outdoor track. There's a Yoshi's restaurant nearby. It was fine. More Mario Kart. Good. It's it's probably better than the old one, but there's no evidence of that. It's just more Mario Kart. But then we get the game itself, the big debut, and it's called Mario Kart World. Now, I'm gonna rate these games based on titles independent of reality for a second. So, Mario Kart World is slightly troubling to me. Not because I hate the world. I'm a big fan of it. I chose to live here. But when I hear Mario Kart World, my brain goes to World Cup and goes to different international things, each country, blah blah blah. Which connects Mario Kart to FIFA games. FIFA games are very mechanical, lack imagination, lack game diversity. So for me, I was kind of worried, just from the title at least, that Mario Kart World is somehow Olympics and it's just tedium. But no, it should not be called Mario Kart World. It should be called Mario Kart Worlds at least, because it's not like it's dependent on Earth's countries or dynamics or anything like that. It's just that there's a geographic link between the tracks. And it looks really cool. It does, because not only, beautiful graphics, which I'll get into in a second, but it's just and you can drive between tracks, and they're teasing bonus modes like a free roam mode, which is all I want. By the way, I love racing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but if there was a mode where I get in my car and I explore the track, drive to one end to the other, find new things, explore, discover things, possibly meet characters, but just see things from a new angle, figure out secrets, solve logistic driving puzzles, blah blah blah. That's better to me than racing. Racing is it's too competitive. Why are we racing against each other? We should be racing as a unit. It should be like people driving in real life. We all want to get where we're going, and if no one gets in an accident, we win. Period. Smooth traffic. Mario Kart smooth traffic. Anyway, uh, so the game's exciting because of those new modes, and yeah, I mean, I'm gonna like it. I'm gonna sink time into it. I'm hearing rumors there's a story, more story aspect to it as opposed to just straight racing. So looks solid, looks cool. It's the launch game. Everything else is a little later, so it's a must play. I want to talk briefly about graphics because I really like the graphics of the Mario Kart world and all of the Nintendo Switch 2 games, and it's not really like a specific graphical thing. Like Mario Kart World does X, therefore the graphics are Y. I think it's just a general sheen you get from the bump up. Allegedly, it's bumping up to 4K. I'm not even sure if my TV has 4K. I'm looking at my TV. My TV's not answering me, so he's not sure. But anyway, the general point is you see the video going by, and you can just tell it's like a faster resolution, more clarity, more color. Da da da. That's the greatest thing about new consoles. It's like once you're in a console, things normalize, and I think we get kind of like take things for granted, almost get kind of cynical about graphics. But that first hit of like, wow, this looks like that. Like I remember, God, the greatest moment of my video game life, the Nintendo 64, Super Mario 64. Looking back on it now, it's almost archaic. Like you can almost see the blocks in the graphics. But to go from the Super Nintendo, which I didn't even own, to you know, these fully realized 3D landscapes, or even the Sega Dreamcast, to have that sort of like cartoony, but with like full CD technology, bursting the color. Probably a similar bump up from like there were similar bump ups from like Wii to Wii U to Switch, all those a little subtler. But this one is amazing. I mean, I love Switch graphics. I play Switch every day. But Switch 2 just looks like that the next level. That's my whole point. So I appreciate the next levelization. It brings you in a childlike sense of awe, like the world, the dimension between worlds between the old games and Switch 2 is open, and you see it, and it's awesome. And I hope people can cling to that. Wow, you know, because I know, and we'll get to this in a second. The internet is already getting there, but internet's gonna get very negative towards Switch 2 in the same way Nintendo Switch 1. Switch 1 can't do this, can't do that, blah blah blah. But there's still that general impressiveness that we are a generation further, and it's a positive step. So yeah. So if I had to rank my excitement for Mario Kart World, aside from my generic I like graphics, I'll give it a solid 6 out of 10. I like driving games and racing games, but at a certain point, the like turning doing the what's that called? Oh my God, where you press a button and turn, so you hit the turn at an acceleration when you let go. That thing, stuff like that. It becomes very mechanical and rote, and I hope that there's more emotional investment, diversity of gameplay, and it looks like there's more diversity than ever before with Mario Kart. Still not my favorite genre ever. So what else we got for first party titles? Pulling up my computer very professionally mid podcast. I guess I'll hold this game. Ooh, so exciting! Till we get there, because it goes to a main criticism of the Switch 2 afterwards. But Nintendo gets first party credit for Survival Kids. This is a straight confused 2 out of 10 for excited to play. I don't like survival games for the simple thing. It's like, okay, let's take a game like Animal Crossing, where we're managing an island, and then let's make it more complicated than that and frustrating. And then instead of helping you out or just letting you sit in your frustration, there's a chance you'll die. Like Survival Kids, I assume, is less strenuous on the whole dying thing than like Don't Starve or other survival sims. But I don't like characters dying on my watch. I think it's a little too close to reality. Not that I kill people, but just that I could. You know, take care of myself and others as best I can. Survival kids. And I don't like the strategy elements, and the graphics look terrible. When I say terrible, it's a bit of exaggeration, but definitely flat, like cartoonish, but not like fully, kind of like quasi-realistic. Let me know what you think about Survival Kids. I'm dying to know in the comments on iTunes or YouTube. Okay, so probably the biggest game, pound for pound, it was the last game revealed. And it's coming out a month after the system comes out. It's called Donkey Kong Bonanza. Oh, first of all, Survival Kids. Disappointing name. I mean, it's just sounds like a punk band, but like a weird one. Like we're the Survival Kids, British band from the 70s. But why are you called that? That's just like wordy and presumptive and oddly preachy. Could be a Christian band. Survival Kids is not a video game, it's a Christian band. Or maybe it's both. I think it's both. They're gonna make Christian music in Survival Kids. Anyway, let's talk about Donkey Kong Bonanza. Title-wise, well, Donkey Kong, good start. Hard to criticize the name Donkey Kong. I'm a little late in the game. He's not a donkey. Doesn't look like King Kong. It's one of those names where it's like, if you met the baby Donkey Kong in the hospital, you'd be like, why is he called Donkey? But you've grown up with him. You know him. I love the arcade game, later ported to the NES. Donkey Kong Country is difficult, but fun. Great iconography and, Mario Party, Mario Tennis, all the Mario games. So I'm a big fan. Bonanza as a name, it's a pun. I like puns. So let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot, guys. Hold on. Pitchforks down. So, Bonanza, a dramatic 60s show about a ranch, but more generally, like, you got this great treasure. It's a bonanza. And then you put a Banaa, the potassium enriched fruit that Gwen Stefani once rapped about. Let's not talk about that. So bonanza with banana in there. It's a little forced, not gonna lie. I mean, it works as a pun, grammatically. Like what's a monkey's favorite western? Bonanza. Done. But it just feels contrived. It's kind of like the name Donkey Kong. Maybe that's why they did it. Like, Donkey Kong obviously works as a name. He's a very successful person, but the word donkey in there is weird. It's like Survival Kids. Nintendo, what's with the weird names? Just overstuffed names. It could be like, I can't think of like a better one. Certainly not a pun. But Donkey Kong, like Banana Hunter, done. So that's what the game name is. Doesn't feel as bonanza. So anyway, the game is a 3D platformer. It's not really in the style of Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong doesn't really have a style. He throws barrels at Mario from a roof, and then he went like climbing up mountains in the SNES games made by Rare, who are now owned by Xbox. Video game history. But anyway, it's not in that style. It's in a new style that looks like it's like Donkey Kong can smash stuff and then explore down into holes he creates or do stuff with smashing rocks. Kind of like a open worldy ish thing, sort of exploring the environment for little banana prizes, just like the moons in Super Mario Odyssey, which is a great game, one of the greatest of all time, easily. So that looks fun. Not much else to say about that game yet. It's kind of a teaser. He's gonna smash through these things and do things, and it looks cool. I want to briefly mention here that in addition to the Switch 2 conference, I watched both days of the Nintendo Switch Treehouse, which was a independent but clearly linked presentation where Nintendo staffers highlighted gameplay footage of the games listed. Excuse me. So I saw a little bit more of Donkey Kong. But I have nothing to add other than that. I sat through like 8 combined hours of Nintendo Treehouse, maybe a little less than that, and it was just more of the games. It was like, oh, that's Mario Kart. I'll buy that. And then I watched them play Mario Kart. I'm like, yep. And that was pretty much the same with Donkey Kong. So my excitement for Donkey Kong Bonanza, gonna give it a solid 8 out of 10. I mean, I would buy anything in this mode. You know, Super Mario Odyssey, like I said, was a great game. I've beat it multiple times, which is pretty rare for me for games. And I want to do that with this game as well, because it's mascot platformer, open world gameplay, new worlds to explore. Just interesting. But at the same time, the teaser of it, smashing stuff and going down, seems very basic. And we didn't get a lot of hint of the like rich character, storyline changes, even like different locations. So tentatively, I mean, I'm gonna buy it and play it, but it's just like I don't know how to feel about it yet. Knowing what I know about Super Mario Odyssey now, it does not look as good as that in terms of its diversity of content and emotional connection, and etc. But I'm sure they will add stuff like they had in Odyssey, you know, like Mayor Pauline and Princess Peach, what she's doing. You don't get to see that in a trailer, so it's probably going to be better than a 7 out of 10. That's all I'm saying. Other first-party games. Trying to avoid the controversial ones, so yeah, I'll come back to that one. Real quick, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Personal excitement has to be like, it's almost a 1. I'll give it a 3, give benefit of the doubt. Hyrule Warriors, if you don't know, it's based on Dynasty Warriors, my sort of footnote version of this story, where you're one guy with like a weapon, there's an army, like hundreds of guys, and you're able to go in there and just like kill all the bad guys, and then, you know, sort of the gameplay changes, and there's storyline, and there's power-ups, and blah, 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 but it's just, that's the basic mechanic. They've done this 3 times. I'm honestly I would be more interested in going back to the original Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition for the Switch one, because that has a certain completeness to it that I'm interested in. I'm not really interested, not the biggest Zelda player anyway, but at least Zelda, it's an adventure. This is an action mechanic, a little contrived, a little simplistic for me. So I'm glad other people will like it more than me, and hopefully they can explain it to me and convince me to do it at some point on a later episode of this show, maybe. All right. Big reveal that some people are really excited about. I'm surprised this didn't get more controversy, honestly. Kirby Air Riders, which is a sequel reference, same general idea as a GameCube game called Kirby Air Ride. It's a racing game, and instead of a car, those stars. If you ever played a Kirby game, especially a modern one, where it's like you run through the level, you grab the star, and the star sort of like shakes, and then goes, and it goes. The star goes up in the air. You can ride those as a racing car. Oh yeah, I didn't rate high. What was it? Quick title rating. Gotta keep my format straight. Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment. Hyrule Warriors, I like. It's kind of sleek, simple. It lets you know it's Zelda without worrying about length. Age of Imprisonment. That's a terrible name. I'm sorry. Just makes me think of like, I don't want to get doxxed on my podcast, but like slavery or going to jail. I mean, why is it so depressing? It's not like the character goes to jail or gets imprisoned. Anyway, let's not dwell on that. Kirby Air Riders. Yeah, that's a more fun name to read than it is to say. Kirby Well, saying Kirby with no punctuation is weird because it's like, are they writing Kirby error? No. But also, okay, but then, so yeah, it should be Kurt. I don't know how you do this because I would just call it air writers, I guess, because it's based on old Kirby games, so we know it's Kirby. But anyway, I don't like the word writers because I always think WRITERS like as like two words at once, sort of a disassociation effect, and it's kind of lame. I don't know what a better one is, but the concept of air writing is flying. Why do we have to make it weird like that? We don't say, birds ride the air current. I mean, that's technically partially true. I think it should be like air race, Kirby air race. I mean, I don't. That's a little clunky, but a little more accurate, a little less wordy. So I've had problems like every title in this presentation so far. Yep. My excitement rating, I think I gave it, but just in case, I'll probably get into it. I'm not a big fan of the Kirby side games. The Kirby Golf on the SNES is terrible. I'm not a big fan of the cooking one, whatever it's called, the cooking adjacent one. I'm not even Kirby games can be kind of plain if they're not like the big expensive ones, like the one on that Switch, the big one on Switch, whatever that was called. That was awesome. But the little Kirby games, eh. So I'm gonna give it like a tepid 4.5. I might get into it. So before we go back for the controversial games, quote unquote, let's talk about the Dusk Bloods. Oh boy. If you thought I didn't like titles before, I really don't like this one. I mean, I okay. I'll do it. I'll do the game first, and I'll go back to the title. The Dusk Bloods is a yet to be explained later release Switch 2 game. It's made by From Software, who made the Dark Souls games like that. I would in theory like Dark Souls, but in execution, not really. It's like dark universe, monsters, and like a warrior with a sword going on a quest, killing the bad guys, and it's like incredibly difficult. Very iconic screen of you died, get repeated over and over again. There are games that are called use the phrase "get good," which is in reference to the fact that you will die so repeatedly that by going back in, your skill will increase and you will become good at the hard game. I'm not a fan. And there's no details on Dusk Bloods. Does no one say their names out loud at Nintendo? Or From Software in this case? Because Dusk Bloods, it just has too much weird consonants. The blood and the ksk, both words are weird. You just ram them together. What does that mean? There's no way it's anything close to literal. Is it blood that you can only see at dusk? Is it blood that is a little bit dark and a little bit light? Why is it one word? It's not a compound word. That would imply that the operative noun is blood. And it's like the gang in, not that I know anything about this, but the gang in the gang. The Bloods versus the Crips. Where's the Dusk Crips? You know what I'm saying? And it's supposed to be scary, I guess? That's the general implication. Is that, vampires who come out at dusk or something, or... Why dusk? Dusk is inherently less scary than night. Shadowblood? Sounds really good. That's a great name. Nightblood? I'm sure some of these have been taken or feel a little contrived or whatever, but Duskblood is in plural. Dusk Space Blood would be better. My excitement to play the game, it's higher than a Dark Souls game because it's the first Nintendo one, so I'll probably end up playing it just to try it. But it's gonna be too hard for me, so it's lower tier. If I gave 4.5 for Air Riders, which I actually will end up playing because I want to see what happens, and I like Kirby. even in his God, Kirby Fighters was terrible. I never even got through that. So I'll make Kirby a 6, just because realistically I'm gonna play it. Dusk Blood's a 5, because I'll have to consider it when it comes out. I got 2 games left that are actually coming up way earlier than Dusk Bloods. But by far the most controversial thing, though, we'll get into other issues that are big with the Switch. So, there's a lot of new things with the Switch that I'm not qualified to get into. The increased graphics, the 4K visuals. The Joy-Cons are very similar, which are the controllers, are very similar to the controllers on the Nintendo Switch. It's got like a handheld like thing where you can hold it in you can hold one Joy-Con in your hand and press the buttons and manage it and wave it around for some stuff. Anyway, they have bigger ones. That was my whole point. And those are different, but that's still yet to be seen how different and how much more manageable or worse they are than the old ones from Switch 1. The whole point of this was that, to mine, the biggest new thing about Switch 2 so far, we'll get to the coolest thing at the end, I think, is that the Joy-Con, I think I'll do it. Joy-Con, it'd be a bigger version of this. You could stick it on the desk and scroll it like a mouse and move the thing around. And the general consensus, which I mostly agree with, is that's cool. I'm playing a video game. How much mouse control operation are you expecting? Not a lot, hopefully. So there was a lot of confusion. Like, what does that mean? Is this just like a game, any video game you're playing where you're like, I'd rather have a mouse, you can have one. Well, controllers are fine, but have a mouse. But there was actually a game that is 100% mouse dependent. It was the big gimmick game of the Switch 2. And this is now we're entering the sort of like post-honeymoon phase reactions to the Switch 2. Stuff that I didn't feel when I watched it, but I read online, and has affected my opinion of the Switch 2. So anyway, how do you justify the mouse controls? Well, obviously, you make a game that's mouse dependent, and hopefully people agree with and enjoy that mouse dependency. And what game do you use to make mouse dependent games? If you said wheelchair basketball, even if you were right, you should probably consult a psychiatrist, because that is weird. Yeah, the game's called Drag X Drive, or Drag by Drive, or Drag times Drive equals fun. I don't know. And you're playing wheelchair basketball. The video they showed, characters all in black in a black wheelchair with black wheels. Looks very much like a stick figure stand-in. It's not really a video game avatar. It's not Mario or anything. And you take the mouses, because you take both Joy-Cons. The word is mouses. And then you roll them on the desk, and it makes a motion that allows the wheelchair to propel, kind of like, it looks like it on my screen, the motion of the wheelchair. And you shoot the basketball. And the videos they showed, it was a fairly small court, like an indoor play space, kind of like a Tony Hawk game, where it's like 2 courts, a rideable an over ramp in the middle, and then ramps back in a dark warehouse. So there's no context to location whatsoever. You're just rolling a wheelchair in a Tony Hawk warehouse skate park thing, and you shoot the basketball into the hoop. And this is supposed to like sell the Switch 2, which is bizarre. As someone who is like, I don't know, not, I was gonna say basically someone who's a human being who gets tired and frustrated with repetitive tasks, doing this on the desk to get the game going and to do it just seems really frustrating and aggravating to my hands and my body. And It's weird because I know it's not a very popular game, but I have Nintendo Switch Sports on my Nintendo Switch, which is basically interrelated hardware since I can play that game on my, there's um, backwards compatibility, so I can play that game on the Switch too. But anyway, in Nintendo Switch Sports, they have basketball, and you take your Joy-Con, and you like, they have different things: fake dribble, fake go for the steal, fake shoot, fake dunk, blah blah blah, and that runs fine. And you get to do it in like an outdoor court, very basic. There's only one location, but outdoor court, your own avatar, colorful character, run around, play basketball. Like, that's fine. There was basketball and Wii Sports Resort on the Wii. I didn't play that game, but why is wheelchair basketball better? The only thing I could think of is, well, A, maybe there's more to the game we haven't seen, but B, maybe it's like, because it is, I guess, positive messages about wheelchairs, but that's less positivity of thing than just normalizing the existence of it. I don't know. I guess that's good, but that doesn't make a great game on its own. So yeah, that's the justification for the mouse. And it's disappointing because it's not established franchise. It's not a landmark achievement in video game realism or anything. It's dual mouse controls. It feels very mechanical. I mean, it needs to be explored further before I buy it. My excitement for that game is basically a 0, but I'll give it a solid 2, because I like sports games. I guess I like basketball as a sport and as a video game hobby, not a real life hobby because I suck at it. All right, but yeah, it's boring. So that was one controversy with the Switch 2, just because that game was so disappointing and showcased so heavily. It was on the Treehouse gameplay stuff too. Didn't look much better than the teaser at the convention, or the direct. So finally, last game, which I think gets into the main complaint about the Switch 2 that has really soured a lot of people. And when I say soured a lot of people, it sours YouTubers, which is already kind of a soured profession, because it's like I don't know. It's like if you're gonna get hits on being a video game critic, you got to find something to criticize, and I think that happens a lot, and it's very artificial, especially in video games, because it just, I don't know, it lacks a lot of the perceived intellectual purview of like book criticism or even movie criticism, where you have to like watch the whole movie and think about it, and there's more debate and nuance. There's less so in people like me doing YouTube videos. That was a long segue to saying that an issue that it's all about money, basically. The issue that came up after the Switch presentation. So the game I'm going to refer to is Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Now, I, for one, love this game because I was saying before, like games like to an extreme negative, Hyrule Warriors or Mario Kart to an extent. I want games that have an exploration, feel like I'm gonna do stuff and blah blah blah. The Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour does have exploration, does have new elements, does have surprises. The gimmick is it's like you're inside of your Nintendo Switch 2, like virtually on the screen, and you walk around and you like solve puzzles, answer questions, try things out. And it looks fun. My excitement level, I can't believe this must be the highest success level. No, I needed to grade on a more realistic scale. I'd probably rather have Donkey Kong than this game, so I'll rank them the same, 7 out of 10. Well, that is a harsh scale. Realistically, Donkey Kong and this game are 10s. Anyway, the big controversy is that this game costs $10. Which to me is insane. As a Switch user, Nintendo does not offer discounts on the games that they have released at full price, and they issue almost all of their games at full price, especially first-party games, which on the Switch was like 70, maybe $60. $10 for Nintendo Switch World Tour is fine. But then people online skip this step, in my opinion. They go, clearly this game only has the utility of a basic pack-in title, therefore it should not be charging $10 to buy it. But they're obviously skipping the step. They haven't played the game. They don't know what's in it. They don't know how elaborate it is. And to presume something's free, should be free, is one thing. When something is not free, to then criticize it as a moral failing, that's just, dare I say, un-American or naive to economic concepts. $10 game, I'm all in. I want it now. That's it. Yeah, so General Switch 2. So, oh yeah, that game. Yeah, okay. And I think I didn't do names for that one. Oh yeah, Drag X Drive is just why the X? You expect me to know what the X is and not assume multiplication? And then that was my title review for that. My title review for Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour. It's fine. Seems very like Japanese translation to say Welcome Tour. It's like, not only is the welcome kind of implied by the tour, but it's like no one says welcome in reference to tours. It just floats weird. So I don't think I like any titles on this. No. Just give me the franchise in a year. Kind of like trying to make a witty reference here. Yeah, like kind of like Fast and Furious 2015. Or was it? That wasn't that year. Oh my god! Dom, I betrayed you. It's all about fun. Alright. So yeah, Switch 2 is a money concern, which it does affect me directly, because I don't have a lot of money. I'm looking for more. Hashtag random donations to YouTube or something. Or iTunes. But anyway, so the system was debuted at $450, which people were kind of shocked by, because the progression from Switch 1 implied a bump up to $400. And then Mario Kart World's going to cost $80 retail. That's a non-negotiable, which is disappointing, because, you know, we're going from a loose 60 retail to 70, which Nintendo is doing for a lot of games. But now they're like supposedly justifying the production cost of Mario Kart World for 80. So people are becoming economic analysts and saying that this is going to ruin the viability of the Switch 2. And I don't know. In my world, it makes it a little frustrating to pay for it, but it's not unmanageable. But video games are not cheap. Neither are electronics. You can go in the freaking movies with no food. It costs like $20 now. So inflation. But pretty much. And then it's the underlying thing that's less Nintendo's fault, but could be almost worse for the Switch 2 is so I think Rutherford B. Hayes came back to be president, and he's putting in some tariffs that are not good, and limiting foreign economies from working with the United States, and may result into increased cost changes in America to reflect tariffs on items produced in Vietnam and Japan. Fun! Sorry, it was really fun though. That's about it for the Switch 2. I'm excited. I mean, as a Switch 1 user, this is like made for me. It's like a Switch 1, better graphics, new games. The backwards compatibility is cool. Oh yeah, and GameCube games. Nintendo, if you don't know, has been doing old systems on the Virtual Console, starting with the NES and Game Boy, all the way up until Nintendo 64. And we're going to get GameCube games, which is obviously the most sophisticated we've gotten so far, but also GameCube in particular, generation with like graphics that still hold up, games with detailed stories that still, parallel the modern methodology. N64 is a little bit more of a flatter visual thing with the programming for cartridges and stuff. In the yeah, big jump from the late '90s to the mid 2000s and disc technology and etc. So that'll be cool. Yep. No, no, Switch 2 is gonna be cool, and apparently the games have terrible titles. All right. So that took a lot longer than I expected. So let's talk about uh, Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone 1985 to 1989. Yeah, I mean, I feel like no one thinks about it very often. People who do, nerds like me, um, of course it gets a. I mean, I feel like at this point, the critical evaluation of Twilight Zone 85 is that we know it can't compare to the early 60s, late 50s Rod Serling Twilight Zone. So don't even bring that up. And in fact, it might be good? Question mark? Because why not? Once you take away the let's back up. In the beginning, there was darkness. No, not that far. So, Rod Serling did the Twilight Zone, and I often, when you think about these things, you think about like, why was that show so good? Because I mean, most people agree. You watch it and you go like, that's good. And I think there's a lot of different things going on. I think Rod Serling had a motivated vision that exceeded like, hey, I want to be like popular right now. What's in the news? No, Rod Serling had a tangible point of view on the world that seems simplistic, but when it's done sincerely and with effort, is very effective. Which is basic stuff. It's like people are racist. People do bad stuff to women. You have to treat children well, even animals. Blah blah blah. And then using uh, science fiction elements to sort of build out the world, and these ridiculously clever twists at the end that can be recited from memory. It's a cookbook. I don't know, when William Shatner's plane has that little terror in it, where the monster must have been. That's not really a twist, but it is sort of like an impactful ending. That's the point. There are lots. Obviously, every iteration of the Twilight Zone had writers who wrote television because they wrote the Twilight Zone. But Rod Serling had a really good ear for not it's a combination. I'm getting there. Succinct storytelling. I got to wrap this up in 25 minutes. That one season where they did an hour, even that was pretty good. So 50 minutes, whatever it is. But also, these characters got to feel emotions, and I'm working in a sci-fi element, and it just comes together so effortlessly that it really stands the test of time. Like, I have a friend in college who was saying that, Twilight Zone has hammy acting in it, which is true to an extent. It depends, week by week who you get to act in the thing, because it's an anthology show, you can't have the same cast. But Twilight Zone's able to streamline a lot of that, so it's less, emoting in a vacuum, but also alongside the slick storyline. And I think really, to sort of like less summarize or exemplify the success of the Twilight Zone, I think it's just Rod Serling's personality. So the guy with a lot of anxieties, apparently brought on by PTSD in World War II, and he ran a very tight ship, very focused, kind of obsessive, maybe a jerk to other writers, and but he pushed through control. And I think that's an important aspect. to good art is control. And hopefully the control is collaborative and supportive and encouraging. And I think, I don't think Rod Serling, even if he's a bad guy, which he's not, the bad guy's too strong. I'm going to say it. He may have had a certain attitude at work, but he's not like a, criminal behaviorally. So, anyway, all in all, the show's great. Did have some good actors in there too. But I think it's fair to say, okay, let's do it this way then. So yeah, I keep getting in the way of my own summarizations. We've established that Twilight Zone's great. I'm leading into, obviously, that the 85 Twilight Zone is not as good. So let's look at similarities and differences based on what I said. Great actors. This one's weird. A lot of these comparisons are weird. Because, so like, not to get back in the Twilight Zone original too much, but there were like 5 seasons. And they were all very good. There's some pluses, some minuses, episodes you don't like. But like, as observed from a whole, 20 episodes at a time or whatever, excellent show. 80s Twilight Zone technically only had 3 seasons. I think they took a year off in like a retooling / downsizing, honestly, of the 80s. So 3 years. And the quality is very different, but also similar. Let's get into it. Structurally, technically, there's not a lot of differences in the show from a structural level. They streamlined the narration because in the original, Rod Serling's on camera, and it's very like prosaic introduction. The new shows and all the later Twilight Zones, they have a guy do a voiceover at the beginning and the end. You never see him, which is whatever. But and then yeah, structurally the stories are the same, which is like there's a guy or girl, but I'm using guy in the generic sense, who living life a certain way. Either the world he lives in is weird, or he or she. I'm using he universally. Well, I don't want to argue with myself all the time. He lives in a, either his world is weird, the future. It could be a dystopian future. It could just be people act weird, or things become weird, and there's a resolution, kind of impacted on a moral. Okay, I should probably get into some specifics here because I was starting to feel like the show's the same. And okay, the big differences. The show's uglier, the '80s show. It would probably also be expensive to go back and shoot it in black and white. The '80s one, it might look better though because it's just a lot of like flat color. And I think even though I don't think Rod Serling could have used color if he wanted to, I suppose he could have tried to get Technicolor or something, but the stark black and white gives a lot of groundedness to the Twilight Zone. It looks very pretty, the light has a nice balance and all that. And it just gives that like sort of like, I don't know, stability to it. In Twilight Zone, there's a lot of like weird colors, and it just seems overblown and misused properly. It's not like no color television show was able to do that properly. Just this show couldn't. And I honestly, because the scripts aren't as good for the '80s show. I think that's hard to argue. Okay, I'll give you one example because this is getting very generic, and I apologize. Like, I love the Twilight Zone. This Twilight Zone's terrible, and that's pretty much it. But anything. Okay, so yeah, the scripts are bad and the acting's bad. That's my main critique of the '80s Twilight Zone, and it's interesting obviously, because what else would I talk about it? Why are you listening? Hopefully, uh, no, because the '50s Twilight Zone, there is a lot of like, oh, that's a famous actor. Like Robert Duvall was great in a few episodes. William Shatner was great in a few episodes. There's other ones. Robert Redford. The list goes on. But there's also just like actors you don't know as well who do a good job, and that could be the direction that we don't see or the script. In the '80s one, it just feels like that. The chicken and egg thing. Like, is the mediocre acting sort of like hurting the story? Yes. And there's the mediocre story sort of like hurting the actor. Yes. So I was mentioning before how old Twilight Zone's black and white. It's very tightly structured. And I think that all comes down to non-visual cues. The idea that stylized shooting can sort of, obviously still lots of dialogue in the Twilight Zone, TV show, a lot of talking, but cutting here, cutting there, close up here, using the cutaway, you know, subtlety with the camera, blah blah blah. It prevents overly expository dialogue, which is especially hard in a science fiction show, because science fiction shows are hard because you have to explain things that the audience does not inherently know. World building. And anthology science fiction is even harder because it's going to change the next episode. But Rod Serling did a really good job of grounding basic stories. They're not, I mean, they are and they aren't. Basic ideas and the layering on top of it visually. The new stuff, they have to explain everything with dialogue. I think it's simply a concept of the production budget wasn't the same. I'm sure, I don't know how like inflation versus blah blah blah, but there's a lot of episodes of the new Twilight Zone where it's like stuff's happening in a futuristic setting that looks really cheap, and characters have got to be like, okay, so I'll just get into it. The last episode of the show ever made, or ever released, who knows, it's about this guy, old man, who owns a company. He dies. His son expects to own the company, but his dad gets a brain chip put into a robot young man's body, and so now the old dead dad is now a young alive robot man, and the son wants to like argue legally that the dad is dead, and this is leading to me doing a podcast about this stupid show. But the basic point is, okay, because here's the thing, I don't know how much this applies to the whole show, but for that episode, it was really asinine because it was a series of conversations or meetings about how the son thought the dad should be declared dead because he's a robot, even though he has functional intelligence that makes him alive. And the show does it tries to skip some things. I feel like for budget reasons, they tried to skip the dad becoming the young man. The first shot of the episode is like the robot man doing workouts, and he comes out, and his son's like, "You're not my dad." Yeah. And it's like, there's Twilight Zone episodes that are very similar, where like someone dies and becomes a robot. But you see, like that's like the third act. That's like the big reveal. We don't open with this guy died and now he's a robot and you can't see any of it. and now let's go straight to the ramifications of being a robot. And it's all like talking, but it's not. It just lacks a lot of. And again, I don't know if this is because the acting casting. Like, I keep going into different things, but very simple. There's a Star Trek Next Generation episode where this guy sues that Data, the android, is not a person. And as it turns out, the episode is very simplistic because it's very easy to prove that Data is a thinking human-ish person because he is. But anyway, they're able to present that over time. There's a trial, there's gaps, things change, character relationships. This is just a non-stop barrage of the concept of the lawsuit being discussed. The son's like, "Oh, I'm going to sue," and he leaves. And then the robot man's talking to his lawyer, and he leaves. And the robot's talking to his wife, and it's just things aren't like changing. We're just watching the robot man in it. It's very exposition heavy. We get this thing where like he eventually deteriorates and quote unquote dies because the trial's stressful, but it's just sort of like laid out as something that happened less than an emotional effect. And yeah, bad episode. Yeah, this is frustrating because I feel like the best way to lay this out would be like go through every episode and be like, this is why this is terrible. But it's just it becomes a meandering talk fest as opposed to the stylish, controlled environment that Rod Serling created with the original show. That's the crux of it. There's no underlying vision or evolution. What does this show add that the last show didn't? And the answer is, if I had to generalize, color, vision, color in the field, and over talking and bad acting, and I think it just wanted to make those stories, but it didn't have the guts to make those like big twist endings and big stories and challenge the status quo. It was very, very soft and mediocre. I wish I had a better summation than that, but I guess I should have prepared for this show. With that, I think this is going to be about it for today's episode. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I think they were both the Switch and the Twilight Zone had good elements. It could have been organized better, but I think the Switch was a little tighter. But we'll work on it. We'll grow together. The show is a work in progress, and Marcus will be back hopefully next week. Thank you for listening. Remember, if you need a killing, ask a twin. That can't be right. Nope.